My name is Celina Rose, and I'm here to tell you a very sad story with a happy ending. I was born in June of 1942. My father one day went out onto the street in the ghetto looking for food. The SS came to the ghetto and they collected all the men in the street, my father amongst them. And that 2 days before I was born, he disappeared. And we never found out where he went or what happened to him, but in all probability, he was shot somewhere. When I was 9 months old, the ghetto was liquidated. And all the inhabitants who survived the starvation of the previous years were taken to a camp outside of Krakow called Płaszów. This was a working camp, and the children of the ghetto were not to go into this working camp. It was only adults. So the Nazis made the parents put all the children into a big building, and they promised that the children would be taken care of. My mother had a very bad feeling about putting me in with the other children and wouldn't do it. That building was bombed with all the children inside. Evening fell, and my mother and my aunt hid building to building, street by street. They really didn't know how they were going to survive, but luck was the biggest element and the greatest gift you could have in those days. My Uncle Martin, who was 22 years old at the time, was in a working party who came from the camp back into the ghetto to pick up the bundles and the belongings of the Jewish police. And he knew that his sisters weren't in the camp. So he ran around the streets calling their names, and they heard him. He took me and ran with me, 9-month-old baby, and the usually very thorough, very meticulous German didn't bother to count how many people there were in the group. Within a few days, obviously I couldn't stay in the camp, so my Uncle Martin took me, put me in a sack between them under their arms in a working party which was going to a factory in Krakow. So Martin, who was extremely brave and a real risk taker and gambler at that very young age, took me out of the factory and ran around Krakow looking for somebody who would look after a 9-month baby. He found a woman who had accommodation for women who worked in nightclubs and dance halls. The women would come and go, and there were children there who would come and go. However, after a time, the camp was closed. No more working parties came through. She became very nervous. She had a German boyfriend, so she decided she couldn't keep me anymore. So she abandoned me on the street corner. A Polish couple lived in a nearby house. They were childless. They came out of their building and they saw me sitting on the street corner. And at a time when you wouldn't pick up a stray dog, they picked up a stray child. They did a fantastic thing to take me in at all. So the Polish couple who took me in were Karol and Maria Żmuda, and I was with them from about 10 months till the end of the war. So I was almost 3 when the war ended. Now, in the meantime, my family were lucky enough to be included in Schindler's list of people, in Schindler's group. And he moved his people from Płaszów to a concentration camp in Czechoslovakia called Brinitz. They found the woman who was supposed to be looking after me and wanted to know where I was. And she took them to the house where the Żmudas lived, and my mother was able to reclaim me. So I was reunited with my mother. Of course, I didn't know who she was because I had been brought up to be a Polish girl living in a Polish Catholic family, and now I had a whole new family and I had to get used to a totally different mother. So this was a story that was one amongst millions. My family decided they wanted to get as far away from Europe as they possibly could, so they elected to come to Australia, and which was a place they really didn't know where it was, what it was, but they knew it was a long way away from Europe. We all came to Australia in 1951, and that was the best, most wonderful decision that could ever have been. My family started a business. I became a teacher. That was my passion as well as my profession. I loved teaching. And I was lucky enough to meet my husband Len when he was a fifth-year medical student. And within 2 years, we had our first child, Mark. Within another 2 years, we had our second child, Melinda. And I feel that we have had a wonderful life here in Australia.